Welcome back. This is not another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means it's going to be a little bit of a longer video to cover the topic. So today I'm going to be wearing a band shirt for you. I got Skeleton Pit, a great German thrash metal band, to get me through this one. I have some serious issues with my eyesight here. If you haven't noticed, it's getting much worse, and so I'm dealing with it. But it's a struggle to get these videos done. To be honest with you, I've got cataracts in my left and right eye from when I did the hyperbaric treatments that healed up my two wounds that I had to deal with. And so, because of that, I think I had the early signs of cataracts, and that exacerbated it, made it a lot worse. I can barely see text at all. I've got the text really big to be able to see it. And so I just wanted you guys to know I'm doing the best that I can. If you notice me squinting or typos in places you don't normally expect to see, that's why. All right. I have one eye being done on June 2nd, the other on June 16th. And so I'm just trying to keep the videos coming for you, but it's becoming difficult. So I appreciate your understanding and your support. Now, do me a favor, just take a moment, like the video. You know the deal. Also, if you're not a subscriber, consider doing that before you leave today. Love to have you on in our community. And drop a comment below and let everybody know what you thought. If you just want to throw up some horns, or you just want to say, hey, Pete, or whatever, it helps the video get out there to more people. Also, if you comment on each other's posts, that helps as well. So feel free to do some of that. It's very important to remember that no one has been found guilty in these crimes. I'm just speculating. I'm giving my opinion on this case, and everything I say is alleged, especially for this one. Now, I'm sure most of you that follow this Idaho 4 craziness have heard, your share of the theories that are out there. Some you may agree with, some you may not, because most of us, we've just been, forced to face the facts that we've been fed, some stray detail here and stray detail there. Doesn't really make any sense, doesn't add up. And anyone who follows true crime knows the idea that a lone attacker with zero ties to any of the occupants of the house on the night of a home football game at a known party house with 6 cars parked in the lot, armed with only a knife. I mean, it's a big knife, but only a knife, would decide to attempt a quadruple homicide. It makes absolutely no sense. Imagine if you rented a movie and that was the premise. You would probably throw it in the garbage. Now, the only way that version makes any sense is at least if one of the people that wasn't attacked was somehow in on it, like insider information type of thing, or worse, a participant in the carnage, or that the victims were somehow subdued and unable to fight back. But even then, the attacker would be gambling with his life or her life if they went in with only a knife. Now, many things mentioned in the PCA, which of course is the probable cause affidavit, have been proven to be absolute garbage. Things like Dylan's account of what she saw in a state of total inebriation, which was then outed in the recent hearing by Ann Taylor that she was fed some of the lines. So there you go. Or the timeline that doesn't make any sense. Or the insinuation that Brian's white Elantra was seen making multiple trips around the neighborhood and a pirouette before stopping. I mean, it's a total joke. And we know that it was written by Ashley Jennings, the assistant prosecutor, who Cy Ray called out as being a total, fraud, basically. Detective Brett Payne, with only a couple years experience, and Detective Blaker, not too familiar with his experience. I wouldn't trust them to write a Mad Lib, let alone a PCA. So what are we left with here? We could just throw up our hands, I guess, and just find out how things turn out in August at the trial. And we know the way things have swayed so far. I think we all know that Brian could actually be found guilty. And before you guilters out there get all bent out of shape, because I know you guys like to do that in the comments, if there is legitimate evidence showing that he actually did this, not some dog and pony show, but actual evidence that ties him to the crimes, I say load up the bullets and take him outside. But if not, he needs to be found not guilty. That's the way it's supposed to work. Simple as that. Now, I have posed some of my own theories here on the channel, and that's what I do. I'm not going to read court documents to you. There are excellent channels like Jewels of All Trades and Truth and Transparency that do that kind of stuff for you. They're really good at it. I give my opinion, and I'm not a news station, so that's not what you're going to get here. There is a huge difference, and sometimes I wish people in the comments that freak out when the creators speculate that it may very well be the reason why the rest of the audience is there. They want to hear what they've got to say about the topic. They already know the topic's going on. They just want to know, what do you think about it? Simple, okay? Now, my lambs to the slaughter theory was modified a bit, but then basically says that these crimes were done by 3 or 4 people doing the actual wet work, and then a handful of others who provided various things that night to be sure that those 4 people ended up in that house and that the doors would be unlocked or open, and then have at it. Now, I also stirred up the pot when I laid out a wilder theory about the case that I learned about from a fellow creator, Michael Adario, who has a great channel, by the way, Michael Adario Photography, with some really interesting ideas. And it was the alive theory, where I speculated that this entire crime was maybe a hoax to cover up some other operation, or what we talked about as a parallel operation or investigation. And that the 4, were not actually dead, but it's some sort of witness protection program. Now, it was out there for sure, and certainly was met with some side eyes. I get it. But I said myself in that video, I don't necessarily believe that this is how it happened. But I think it's fun to turn the case over, blow off the dust and the rust, and look for any nuggets that were left behind. And thinking like that, yeah, it's a little wild, it's a little crazy, but who knows? A lot of things, could be found by that sort of look. And you never know what you may find. You may find there's actually a 9 and a 1 on Dylan and Bethany's phones. You may find that if you look hard enough. So why did I bring you here today on Easter weekend of all weekends? Well, a new idea hit me the other day. Now, maybe it's the writer in me that has lots of ideas rattling around, and I'm always trying to find something simple and turning it over to see if, what I can do with it in a creative way. Now, I've been this way since I was in 4th grade. So what's that, like 10 years old? So when, my writing career began that far back. So most of us are hung up on the timeline. I believe 2 were attacked just after 2 a.m. and the other 2 just before 3 a.m. But then I got to wondering, why are we so beholden to assume the timeline is even close to correct? I mean, if they lied before, they could certainly lie again. Anybody that's a parent And you know the deal with kids wanting to fib. To me, when I was a little kid, that was the worst type of thing I could have done was lie, my dad told me. People don't respect liars. He's right. He's right. And just like the alive theory helped some of the strange things in the case make some sense, so does what I'm calling the wake and fake theory. Okay. Now, I'm sure some of you know what I did there with that play on words, but some of you may not, and that's okay. Let's just keep going. Now, what about the idea that the crimes happened much later? I know it's against the grain of how we've been looking at these crimes, but it's certainly possible. Who is saying the crimes happened just after 4 a.m.? Dylan Mortensen. She was probably fed that time so that the police could then claim the blurry white sedans were all Brian's car, not one of the 10,000 others in the state of Idaho. On the night of a home football game, need I remind you, and Parents' Weekend at WSU across the state line, with a whole bunch of new white sedans in the picture. Now, I have real problems with the lack of blood mentioned in the 911 call. Then we hear from coroner Kathy Mabbitt that the crime scene was extremely gory, extremely bad. The media has been carrying that water since this all started. I also don't believe that they would, confuse Xana's body as being just drunk and passed out instead of being viciously attacked. So who is telling the truth? Is it the college kids on the 911 call or the coroner? It can't be both. It can't. No way. And that's not even talking about how bad it would stink in that house from decomposition and the release of bodily fluids. Those kids wouldn't be hanging around in that house. It would be too intense. So what if they were drugged? We know that, there was an early rumor going around that they were drugged or was an overdose. How do we know that didn't happen? Kathy Mabbitt said they were all asleep when it happened. So maybe she wasn't lying. Couldn't they be asleep because they were knocked out as compared to just sleeping or drunk? Maybe. It could have happened a few different ways if you think about it, but one that came to mind was a person wearing a gas mask, something to administer the drug as a fog over their faces. I know it's a little out there, but remember, Dylan herself said she saw a fireman in the hallway carrying something. Well, that could certainly be somebody with a gas mask and some sort of gas dispenser, handheld. I'm sure they make them. Now, I'm not a chemical expert by any means, but from my time in the Army, wearing gas masks and charcoal suits and doing lots of training for fighting in a chemical attack, I'm sure the technology is there and readily accessible for the right price. Even if you don't see it going down this way with them being drugged, you can go with them all being really drunk and just passed out. Okay. But to me, that's too much of a risk to take unless someone came through and tied them up. We heard those rumors too, that they were tied up and subdued. Maybe it's true. Now, the next part is also going to throw you off a bit. What if they were either strangled or shot? Now, a pro would use a pistol with a silencer and do it real quick. But if you wanted to keep it super quiet, you could easily strangle 4 people if they were restrained and drugged or tired and drunk. Maybe a weapon was used to keep everyone from raising hell as a form of intimidation. I've said that since the beginning. I think either a real gun or a printed gun, one of those 3D guns. I think you could have done it that way as well, just enough to scare people. But then you ask, what about all the talk of the wounds and the messy scene? Well, again, how do we know that? From Kathy Mabbitt, who was there at 5:30 p.m. on the 13th of November. That's 13 hours after the crimes, if you believe the PCA. More like 15 if you agree with me. That's way too long to be accurate. The coroner uses body temperature as compared to the temperature in the room. And the further out you go, the less reliable the information is. So if and then if somebody wanted to be slick and throw off law enforcement, they could turn down the heat to keep it cooler in there, or increasing it, making it hotter. And this could both alter the time of death. Now, Mafia hitman Richard Kuklinski was known as the Iceman. Why? Because he put bodies on ice to throw off law enforcement when, so they wouldn't be able to figure out when they actually expired. Now, there is so much we don't know about this case, but if the scene wasn't gory, then that could explain why we don't see anything outside of the house from the attacker's escape, or that no one mentions blood when they're talking to 911. No one was telling reporters that first arrived to the scene anything about a gory scene. Now compare that to the Sharon Tate murders by the Manson family. Everyone saw the pictures of the crime scene. It was in the newspapers, and messages were scrawled on the walls in blood. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. We haven't seen anything like that. No pictures or video of the bodies even being removed. And was that scene manipulated after this happened to throw people off? I mean, to make it look like some psychopath came through there with a Rambo knife? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, were the wounds found to be post-mortem? We don't even know. I don't know that anybody's mentioned that or not. So we really don't know. The families weren't allowed to see the bodies. Why? To protect them? Or maybe the Moscow PD doesn't seem to excel so much in customer service. They're not keeping the light on for you or acting like a good neighbor like State Farm. When all of this stuff is done by the cover of night, people are left to speculate. And why is a quadruple homicide in BFE looked at like the JFK assassination? Something bigger was being affected by these four, and someone came to either keep them quiet or retaliation of some sort. Another thing, if you moved the crimes to like 7 or 8 a.m., then the smell wouldn't have been quite to the degree it would have been that many hours later. But believe me, it would still be there. And, when you're around a real pungent smell like that, eventually your nose just, you go, senses go blind and you don't realize it. Just like people that work at a meat packing plant don't smell the incredible ammonia smell that you could smell as a visitor. I've been there, done that. Or they used Vapo Rub under their nose, like law enforcement and the coroners sometimes do. I'm sure they use it like an actual product, but it's basically the same thing. Now, the only ones who rely on the important timeline are not truthful. So why couldn't it have happened in the early morning, like 7 or 8 a.m.? Maybe the coroner was told to say it was gory to fit a story. Or maybe something was done to tamper with the bodies. Were we ever told the wounds were not post-mortem, as I mentioned? I don't think I was. I don't remember seeing that. That would mean after death. A single shot to the head wouldn't be as messy, and there would be a lot of ways that whole thing could have gone down. Now, I just want you to think outside the box. I am not saying that this happened this way. So before you go crazy in the comments, know that. But It's not more outrageous than some of the things we've been talking about or some of the things we've been told. Always think for yourself and question everything. So just wanted to go over that with you, but I'd love to hear what you guys got to say about this one. I can only imagine. Comment away. Let it fly. Whether you agree or disagree with me, you could say I'm nuts. I'm not saying it happened that way. I'm just saying, what if it did? I'll be doing a live today. That's Saturday, April 19th at 4 p.m. Central to talk about this and some more Idaho 4 stuff. So come on and join me. Also, next week, I'll be doing a live with Unfiltered Lucky, either Thursday or Friday. So keep your eyes open. And members of the Horn Tie Club, you guys are amazing. After the live today, we're going to do a members only live. I posted in the community with the link to that group. So go to that after the live is done this afternoon. But I appreciate everybody that watches these videos with us. You guys are awesome. You guys keep it going. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next time.